All right. Okay, so we saw a very simple hello world for creating an API, a web service that listens for this simple hello. Okay, so let's actually implement a couple of the APIs that we were asked for in the assignment. And in the assignment, we were asked to implement a couple of APIs for the various data types, right? So one for user, one for website, one for pages, one for widgets, and so on and so forth, right? Under an assignment directory, right? So let's do that. Let's under our directory root, we're going to create an assignment directory. If you prefer to name this differently, just app or WAM or whatever. I'd rather you maintain the naming that we have, so it makes it just easier for the TA to grade. So please stick to the naming. So under the assignment, we're gonna first create here the entry of our application, of our server side application. So this is going to be the server side of our application. There's an application running on the browser, right, that is handling user interaction, the forms, rendering the DOM, interacting with the DOM, right? And this is going to be the server side, right? We're going to have that client come to us asking for data. Yes? Okay, so let's do that. So first, we're going to do the module export, and we're going to have our function that's going to receive the app here. That we're going to be passing from our server.js. Yes? First of all, let's just make sure that we are able to load this module. So hello from app module. Okay? Let's make sure that we are able to load this. Let's go back to server and load the app. Oops. Let's say var assignment, and we're going to require. And it's under assignment /app. There it is. Oops. There we go. And I could then say assignment and pass it the app. Okay. Or, right, instead of declaring the variable, right, and then calling it, I could just do it all in a single line. Yes? And if I'm not going to use this variable later on, if I don't need it anymore, I could just require and then just call the app. Yes? All right? So I've squished everything into one single line. Right? All right, so let's if we run this, notice that there it is. It says hello from app module, right, which was written here in this console right there. Awesome. So what we're going to do here, let's stop the server. What we're going to do here is that this is going to be the entry point of our entire application, right? So here we're going to have to connect to the database, declare data models and schemas and web services. We're going to have to do a lot of things in here, right? But for this assignment, we're only going to focus on moving all the data manipulation, right? We're going to move it from the client and move it over to the server, right? And we're going to expose that data through web service APIs. This is the focus of these couple of weeks. We're going to be working with web services, right? Exposing data models and data sets through web services. This is exactly what some folks that at Yelp or at AMDB or at Google, that they're exposing their data and making it available at a particular URL. This is exactly what we're doing it. Okay, we're exposing it specifically to our Angular application. But anyone who knows our URL could come and ask for data, right? Because we are supporting CORS. We are supporting CORS, meaning not only are we letting our Angular application that is downloaded from our domain, but we're going to allow anyone out there, right, to hit our URLs. If they know to log in as someone, they can log in and access data. Yes? Right? Okay. All right. So let's start with implementing a couple of services. Okay. In particular, we're going to look at implementing the user service first. Okay. So we're going to implement it. Since we're going to have several services, it's a good practice to group them all together under a directory called services. Right. So so this is going to be implementing several JavaScript files that have the role of services, right? And in your mind, you should be immediately saying, okay, well, what does a service do? A service exposes a URL, right, and it maps it to some data, right? That's a web service. It's being able to have some data, and I want to put it up at some URL, right? So somebody can ask for this data arbitrarily. Yes. Whatever they want to do, if this is an Angular application or React or just plain old jQuery or whatever, right? Some browser, some client wants this data. I don't really care what that client is, right? Here it happens to be Angular, right? But it could have been any other infrastructure asking for this data. It could have been jQuery, all right? It could be just plain old JavaScript. All right. So here we're going to create a brand new service. It'll be the user.service.server. Okay. And in here we would like to be able to implement various endpoints, user endpoints, web service endpoints. So we're going to expose this as a module. We're going to need the app here. And we're going to expose data such as app.get, right? And this will be API / right? And here they're all going to start with user because this is the data type that we're manipulating. We'd like to be able to ask for a list of users, or users by username and password, or users by username, or user by ID. I like to be able to create a user, delete a user, update a user. So this is all that has to do with manipulating the user data types. Yes? Okay. Right now we'll just say a hello. Okay, just to make sure that we are accessing this user API. Yes? And this will be mapped to hello user. Implemented at a function of the same name. Hello user. Okay? And we're going to be we're going to participate in the request response lifecycle, right? We're going to just respond, saying send back hello from user service for now, right? Just to see that we're hitting this. Now that we're implementing the service, we can come back to our application and load it from here. We can require that service we just created. It's under services, and there's our user service. And we're going to pass it the app because that's why we asked for it. I don't really need it. The service needs it, right? Because that's the service implementing that user API. Make sense? All right. All right. So now let's run it. Let's rerun this and check to see if we actually can hit it. Presumably, it's mapped to API /user/hello, right? And indeed, it comes back with hello from user service, right? So we are accessing that service that we hit there, right? And we can step through this, right? We can put a breakpoint right here. We can put a breakpoint on the service right here, right? So we can follow along, right? So for instance, when we start the server, notice that it loaded our app.js, and it's about to require the user service. It's about to instantiate it and pass it the app. Right? We can step in. Actually, oh no, wait, no. Okay, we have to ask for the service. Right? So there it is. It's about to. It's declaring it. Okay, now it's declared. And if I refresh our URL, notice that we're hitting that particular response that is about to send back that data. Everybody okay? Awesome. And we can continue. All right. So great. This is working well. So what I'd like to be able to do is actually implement some of the useful services here, right? For instance, I'd like to be able to maybe ask for all the users, right? Maybe ask for all the users. So let's do that. According to our app, our application, it's something like get API user and no other parameters, right? Just user. The interpretation is presumably find all users. Now, probably this use case is not really what we're implementing for the assignment. This probably is only useful for a user admin, right? That might want to look at all the list of all the users, maybe paginated and whatnot. But nevertheless, it's a good example to get us started. So in find all users, find all users, request response. Here, maybe we want to respond with an array of users, right? So perhaps we can create a users array where we have and I think we have a users array from one of our assignments. Let's see if we go to the previous assignment. I believe we have a list of users that we were using as mock data somewhere here. Maybe. There we go. So I'm going to just copy this array of users and I'm going to just paste it in here. Yes? So I have that list of users and I can now respond and send back the users. Now the send function is a very smart function, right? It allows you to send all sorts of data types, right? All sorts of MIME types, an entire file, an image, a document, right? JSON, strings, numbers, and it's smart enough to use the correct MIME type depending on what it is that you're sending back, right? So it's a very powerful function. Has a little bit of too much overhead because it has to figure out what it is that it's sending before it figures out what MIME type, right? And perhaps sometimes it might be ambiguous of the data type, of the MIME type, right? It doesn't know how to figure out whether it's an Excel file, a spreadsheet, or this is a PowerPoint slide, or right? So ideally, you would use a dedicated function that knows exactly what the MIME type that you want to send back, right? So the JSON function is a specialized function that sends back the data, but sends that it sets the MIME type to application JSON. Okay, so that there is no ambiguity of what is the MIME type that goes back to the client. Yes? All right, so let's try it out. Let's restart our server. Let me remove these breakpoints. And if I go back to the server and I say /users/ API/, you'll notice that indeed we get back the JSON object, right? With the IDs, usernames, passwords. Probably we don't want the passwords. First names, last names, right? All the data that we had added in there. Okay, makes sense, right? Where we like to be able to retrieve all the lists. Again, this probably is not a realistic use case. I believe we don't ask you to implement this particular use case, right? Again, it would be perhaps for an user admin or whatnot. Okay, all right. All right. So let's continue. Let's now implement perhaps retrieving an individual user. All right. Let's do that in the next video.